Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming back because today I want to tell you a story, and it's a story about fear, desire, faith, and the voices we choose to trust. And it begins with two things I wrote in my journal on the same day. On May 23rd, 26, I wrote two things that seem to somewhat contradict each other. In one entry, I wrote about desire, about faith, about freedom, and about letting go. I wrote, my desires come from within, from a place I cannot explain. They are strong, relentless, and they feel like truth. You have guided me, you have led me, and you have shown the light that I follow. And in that moment, I believed the desires within me were connected to something deeper. They were not only things I wanted, they felt like desires held within my soul. And in that moment, the feeling within me was pure, it was free, and it was without any fear. But I also recognized a question that made everything feel harder. Who am I to desire something this big? Who am I to believe this could be possible? And that day I realized something. The question was not whether my desires were too big or too small. They were mine. They could not belong to anyone else, and they could not be taken away simply because someone else did not understand them. But I also realized that having a desire does not mean I can control how it becomes real. I cannot make it happen through force. I cannot push my way towards it. I cannot control every step. I cannot will the outcome into reality. So I wrote, today I choose to let go and let God continue to guide me. There was freedom in that surrender. I did not have to understand the entire path. I did not have to control the future. I could be grateful for the present day. Today is a gift. I have to cherish it. And maybe today, not some distant outcome, is already part of that desire becoming real. But on that same day, I wrote something else. I wrote, the voices in my head are loud, soft, angry, sad, happy, and worrisome. And then I wrote a poem, somewhat of a poem. The voices in my head are loud. They speak and sing at times like crowds. The voices in my head are soft. They seem to be alive. The voices in my head are mad. They often know no bounds. The voices in my head are proud. They cheer each other on with every sound. The voices in my head are not my own. Oh, how could they not belong? The voices in my head require fuel to feed their ego. The voices in my head can shift because we are in control. The voices in my head are my own. We have to figure out which ones to trust. And when I finished writing, that final thought stayed with me. We have to figure out which voices to trust. That same day, I wrote about feeling pure, fear, and free. I also wrote about voices that were loud, angry, sad, and worrisome. How could both things be true? How could I feel certain about the desires within me and still question whether I was capable of pursuing them? How could I surrender the outcome to God and still feel afraid of what might happen? How could faith and fear exist within me on the same day? The question is where this chapter of my story begins. In the first chapter, I share something I believe in all my heart. The impossible is possible. In the second chapter, I told you about my decision to participate in my own life, to stop standing still, to move before I had certainty, to begin becoming the person God created me to be. But believing that something is possible does not make every fearful voice disappear. Sometimes deciding to move makes those voices even louder. Once we believe something is possible, and once we begin to move towards it, we have to confront everything that tells us to stop. Where do those voices come from? Some encourage us, some inspire us, and some remind us of who we are. But others diminish us, they belittle us, they strip away our confidence in the power of who we are. And some voices may come from experiences we have lived through, and some come from people we have met. Some may come from the media we consume, some may come from expectations we inherited, some may come from painful or traumatic situations, and some may come from inside us. from a mind and body trying to protect us. The last part matters because fear is not only a thought. Fear is something we carry in our bodies. From a scientific perspective, fear is part of our protective system. When the brain and body perceive danger, they begin preparing us to survive. Our hearts beat faster, our breathing may change, our muscles may tighten, and we begin to sweat. Our attention may narrow as the body prepares to flee, fight, or assess what is happening. And some of these reactions can begin before we have consciously decided what to do. Fear is often connected to something we perceive as an immediate danger. Anxiety is often connected to something that might happen, a possible future or an uncertain danger. The two can overlap. Both can cause the body to sound an alarm. And that alarm is not evidence that we are weak. It is not evidence that we lack courage. And it is not evidence that we lack faith. It means that our protective system has detected a possible threat. But an alarm is information. It is not always an instruction. The body may tell us that something feels dangerous, but we still have to determine what kind of danger we are facing. Is something threatening us right now? Are we imagining something that has not happened? Are we responding to an old wound? Are we carrying someone else's expectations? Are we simply experiencing the discomfort that comes with becoming something and someone new? And maybe fear is not always evidence that we are moving in the wrong direction. Sometimes fear appears because we are moving beyond what is familiar. Think about wind moving across the pond. The wind causes the water to ripple. The water cannot prevent the wind from touching it. A river cannot stop flowing simply because it encounters a rock. In the same way, we may not be able to prevent every fearful thought from entering our minds or every fearful feeling from moving through our bodies. The voices may not disappear completely, but they can become quieter. We can learn how to respond when they come. To believe in the impossible is not to ignore those voices. It is to know how to respond when they tell us that the impossible cannot be done. As I try to understand the fears behind those voices, I return to something Napoleon Hill wrote in Think and Grow Rich. He describes what he calls the 6 ghosts of fear: the fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, the fear of ill health, the fear of losing the love of someone, the fear of old age, and the fear of death. He also writes about susceptibility to negative influences from inside us and from the world around. Hill describes indecision, doubt, worry, overcaution, procrastination, and a lack of initiative as some ways fear can appear in our lives. These categories are not scientific diagnoses. They are not a way of asking what might be influence our decisions. COVID brought many of these fears to the surface at once. We feared illness and death. We feared losing jobs and financial stability. We feared isolation. We feared losing people we loved. We worried about what other people thought about our choices. Uncertainty existed everywhere. Fear was not simply an idea. We carried it in our bodies, our homes, our relationships, and our communities. Fear can appear in many forms. It can look like procrastination. It can look like indecision. It can look like over-preparation. It can look like criticism of ourselves or other people. It can look like lack of ambition, not because we do not have dreams, but because we are afraid of what pursuing those dreams might require. That is why awareness matters. We cannot examine a fear we are unwilling to name. We cannot unravel something we refuse to look at. Hill also wrote that faith and fear make poor bedfellows. But I want to be careful about what that means. I do not believe that having faith means we never feel fear. My journal from May 23rd proves that both feelings can be present in the same person on the same day. Faith is not an absence of fear. Faith is deciding how we will move when fear is still present. Faith is the assurance of what we hope for and the conviction of what we cannot yet see. Faith looks forward. Faith means living out what we say we believe. For me, faith is settled. I believe in God. I believe He is near, and I believe I can draw close to Him. I do not know the future. I do not know what life will bring. I do not know the outcome of every courageous decision I make. I do not know exactly where this channel will lead. I do not know what the next story will be in this journey. But I know where I look when uncertainty comes. I look towards God. I face what life brings with faith. Those are my beliefs. They are the foundation of which I stand. You may not share all of my beliefs, and that is okay. I'm not asking you to pretend your journey is the same as mine. Each person has their own journey. But I do want you to understand where I come from. For me, faith does not guarantee a particular outcome. Faith reminds me that I do not face the outcome alone. Fear and faith may both be present within us, but they cannot both be allowed to lead. Fear may speak. Faith helps me decide which voice I will trust. On May 23rd, I did not solve my future. I did not discover the entire path. I did not eliminate every fear, and I did something much smaller. I wrote down my desires. I wrote down the voices, and I acknowledged what I could control, and I surrendered what I could not. And maybe that is where overcoming fear begins. Not by demanding that fear disappears, not by pretending we are not afraid, but by becoming aware and being willing to look within. We have to be willing to unravel ourselves, to understand what drives our fears, to shift them, to recalibrate them, to reword them, to take the chaos inside our minds and boil it down to the decision in front of us. What fear ripples through your body? What fear appears every time you try to change? What fear becomes louder when you step outside your comfort zone? What is the fear saying? Where did it come from? What is it trying to protect you from? And does it deserve to make your next decision? Once we name the fear, we can begin to reframe it. We can choose not to allow fear to make the decision, and then we move. We take one intentional step while the fear is still present. Because it may not be possible or even necessary to eliminate every fear completely. Fear will appear as an obstacle throughout our journey. It will often come when we try to change, and it will often come when we become uncomfortable. It will come when you pursue something meaningful. If something is big, we may be a little afraid of it. And sometimes that is exactly where we want to be. We do not want to be overcome by fear. We want to become empowered enough to move through it. So today, I invite you to do what I did. Take 5 minutes, quiet moments, and look within. Write down one desire that feels true to you. Then write down one fear that has been keeping you from moving towards it. And ask yourself, what is this fear saying? Where did it come from? What is it trying to protect me from? And does it deserve to make my next decision? And then complete the sentence. Even though I'm afraid of, fill in the blank, I choose, fill in the blank. Take one small step towards that choice within the next 24 hours. You do not have to see the entire path. You do not have to control the outcome. You do not have to eliminate every fear before you move. You only have to decide that fear will not lead me. For me, faith helps me make that decision. Your journey may look different, and that is okay. If you feel uncomfortable, share your sentence in the comments. Then read someone else's, listen to their fear, encourage their choice, and remind them that they do not have to face it alone. Because this is the community I want to build, a place where we're willing to look within, a place where we do not judge one another for being afraid, a place where we listen, a place where we choose courage together. Fear is part of being alive, like love, like sadness, like joy, like hope. These emotions help shape the people we are becoming. We can embrace them, we can document them, and we can learn from them, and we can support one another through them. Believing in the possible does not mean believing that the journey will be easy. It means refusing to allow fear to have the final word. I do not know where my journey will lead, and I do not know where this channel will lead, and I do not know what the next story will be, but I know the action I can take today. I can name that fear, I can listen to what it is trying to tell me, and I can decide which voices deserves my trust. I can surrender the outcome, and I can take the next courageous step. We may not see the whole path, and we only need enough courage for the next tiny little baby step. So thank you for being here. I may not know what the next story will be yet, but until then, Take the next courageous step. I will see you in the next story, and together, let's make the impossible possible.